In a tomb deep underground, archaeologists carefully remove the lid from an ancient stone sarcophagus. Inside lie the mummified remains of an Egyptian priest, hidden for the past 2,500 years.
Oh my God. This is beautiful.
On closer inspection, though, the mummy isn't what it seems.
No way.
And the investigation takes a surprise turn.
There is something quite mind-blowing.
Forcing the team to question all that it's found so far.
I might be wrong, but I would be very surprised if there is no more surprises in this complex.
And they include the first silver mummy mask found in Egypt for nearly a century.
It's very rare. You don't find it every day.
Inside the ancient cemetery of Saqqara, renowned Egyptologist Dr. Ramadan Hussein and his team of archaeologists are excavating a remarkable new site.
When I started archaeology, I never thought I would be discovering something on that magnitude.
Extensive 3D scans reveal a unique ancient Egyptian funeral complex. Dating from around 600 BC, where the dead were brought to be mummified and buried in an assortment of chambers deep underground.
This tomb complex dates to the 26th dynasty, and that's about 700 years after Tutankhamun and about 600 years before Cleopatra and the end of Egyptian history as we knew it. This time period is interesting because this is when Egypt had had a huge renaissance in religion and burial ideas. So this find is really a snapshot in time and crucial to our understanding of mummification.
Throughout the complex, Ramadan and his team have found an array of treasures, including the first gilded silver mummy mask found in Egypt for nearly a century. And a wealth of grave goods, objects placed with the dead to help secure the best possible afterlife. Today, Ramadan and his team are investigating a pair of stone sarcophagi. They lie in a small chamber, almost 100 feet below the surface.
We have two sealed sarcophagi. One in what we call anthropoid sarcophagus. It means it takes the human form. And another one that is a rectangular sarcophagus.
What makes them so special is that unlike the other sarcophagi in this complex, they're both inscribed with text.
Once we discovered this writing, we understood how valuable this is. So we have put protective paper here. This is our means of communication with the ancients.
The inscriptions are carved on one sarcophagus and painted on the other. And they provide fascinating clues about the people buried inside.
For me, it is a moment that I can read the minds of these two persons to be able to know what they wanted to convey us, what they wanted to tell us.
The ancient Egyptians believed that remembering the name of the deceased by writing it down would lead to their immortality. And the text on the caskets reveals a pair of male names, Chanamit and Yiput. But the text also contains another vital piece of information, their jobs. And interestingly, they both match.
So far, from the text material we have collected, we have two priests.
While this is priceless information, it raises an important question. Why are these two priests here? Is it purely by chance that they share the same tomb? Or could they be, in some way, connected?
That is pretty much the mystery. Why do you have two priests right next to one another? This is a question to be answered when we lift up this lid.
Priests were really a cornerstone of ancient Egyptian society. They had power, they had wealth, and they had influence. So the fact that priests were buried here means that this was a very elite burial place.
To shed light on why a priest like Chanamit was able to afford such luxuries, project consultant Salima Ikram has come to one of the most iconic sites in all of Egypt. The historic city of Luxor on the banks of the River Nile. Among the many nearby tombs is a vast mausoleum belonging to a priest called Pariamanopet.
It was always in ancient Egypt good to be a priest because, of course, religion was of the utmost importance, and also you enter into this hierarchy of the temples and the religion, and so it's sort of like a brotherhood. One of the most striking things about Pariamanopet's tomb is the fact that it is huge. It's the largest non-royal tomb in all of Luxor. The workmanship is exquisite, and it's lavishly decorated. And it would originally have been painted, and you can still see some of the vestiges of paint, which means that he must have been one of the richest and most influential men when he died.
Almost every wall of this enormous 22-room tomb is covered in either paintings or inscriptions. And they contain important information about Pariamanopet's life, including how he was able to amass such wealth.
So priests weren't just religious beings. They were political, they were industrial, some of them were even in the military. They really had their fingers in all kinds of pies. And so you wind up with people who have enormous wealth that they can amass from a huge number of different sources.
So could Chanamit's elaborate burial be a clue to the sort of life he led as a priest? Ramadan is hoping to find some answers in the painted text on his sarcophagus, now that its protective covering is being removed.
Text is so valuable for every archaeologist. It is that joy to be able to read the minds of the ancients. What we're reading here is, if we can draw any analogy, an identification card of this person.
Led by their foreman, Amar, the team begins to open the rectangular sarcophagus of Chanamit to learn more about him. The first task is to break open the thick layer of mortar running round the edge of the lid. Intended as a seal to deter grave robbers, its presence can mean only one thing.
This sarcophagus is 2,600 years old, and it hasn't been touched since Chanamit was buried inside it. This is a three-man job, so we'll see how successful this is going to be. It is a very intense moment for me. What is inside this sarcophagus? عايزين it seems to be working.
واحدة واحدة على ايدك. ايه لا. بس باي.
Line up. يلا.
Now that the sarcophagus is partway open, Ramadan uses an inspection camera to take a preliminary peek.
This is unbelievable.
What it reveals is like nothing else from the complex.
Glittering stuff.
A 2,600-year-old mummy, adorned from head to toe in an elaborate beaded burial shroud. And amazingly, still in one piece.
This beautiful beaded net. It is so elegant. This is so beautiful. This definitely stands out as one of the most remarkable sarcophagus that I've ever opened. I have a job to bring Chanami back to life. We want his story to be told. And I think I'm going to tell the story of Chanami from now until I die. I have so much to do.
Beneath the ancient pyramids of Saqqara, the task of opening Chanamit's stone sarcophagus is well underway. After glimpsing a beaded shroud lying on Chanamit's mummy, project director Ramadan is keen to learn more about this mysterious priest.
Ammar and his team has just lifted up the lid. It's a difficult job. It's a lot of labor, a lot of sweat. Before we roll it out, we need to make sure that nothing will fall on this beautiful mummy. So we're spreading a cloth underneath the lid. Line out. Ammar, we're good to go.
The lid, carved from solid limestone, weighs almost 2,000 pounds. And the team will slide it out on steel rollers.
When you move a large piece of stone like this lid, you don't want this stone to smash somebody's bones. That's first. Second is not to damage and destroy any object inside the sarcophagus. So those are the two main concerns. The safety of the living and also the safety of the dead. Now, I think we're gonna have a full look at the mummy of Chanamit. Oh my God, it's just unbelievable. It is as if actually it was made yesterday. This is beautiful.
Made from hundreds of glazed clay beads, Chanamit's perfectly preserved burial shroud was intended to protect him in the afterlife. Its quality and craftsmanship are a clear sign that Chanamit was a wealthy individual.
This is the work of an artist that was done 2,600 years ago. And now we're getting a first look at it, a bit by bit. The collar is coming out. It's so beautiful, also beaded right here. The head of the mummy. He's still wrapped. You can see his eyes, and the nose, and the eyebrows, and even the mouth. drawn on these linen bandages. This is one of the most beautiful mummies I have ever seen in my life. What is so amazing is the preservation of the beaded net and the necklace after 2,600 years. It's unbelievable. It's just beautiful. But now, the question that is on my mind, who is this person to have deserved such an elaborate burial?
In the faded text on Chanamit's sarcophagus, Ramadan has spotted a mysterious name.
We're looking now at the titles of Chanamit, connecting him to several gods and goddesses from ancient Egypt, very prominent ones. But what is so intriguing here is that he's a priest of a goddess, a serpent goddess. Her name is Nuches, with this circle, then a rectangular below it, then a bolt, and at the end, a serpent. When I first saw the name Nuches, I had trouble reading it because we don't see that name a lot. It sounds really very strange.
While this latest discovery is an important development, it now leaves Ramadan with a question. Who was this obscure serpent goddess? In search of clues, project consultant Salima is once more in the city of Luxor.
We're here at Luxor Temple, which is one of the most important temples in this area because it contains lists of gods and goddesses. And if we're in search of a particular deity, this would be the place to go.
Among the many hieroglyphs covering the temple walls is what's brought her here. A tiny but familiar-looking inscription.
And it's right up here, where you've got that circle up there, the cross in it. And beneath that, there's a funny hook and this lovely snake.
One of the very few mentions of Nut Shayez to be found anywhere in Egypt.
She's not very significant, it would seem. And there are only a handful of mentions of this very elusive mythological figure that we have throughout Egyptian history. Now, 600 years later, at Saqqara, in the tomb of Chanamit, it's a different story, because Chanamit is a priest of the goddess Nut Shayez, and this means suddenly Nut Shayez is an independent entity. Suddenly, she becomes somebody.
A fully fledged goddess in her own right. And what's remarkable is that Chanamit wasn't alone in worshipping this new deity. In a small tomb next to the priest's chamber, Ramadan and his team have made an extraordinary discovery. A mummy wearing a priceless gilded silver burial mask, the first found in Egypt for almost a century. One of the fascinating things about this find is that the text on the coffin reveals that its owner was a priest, just like Chanamit, and that he too worshipped the serpent goddess Nut Shayez.
All of a sudden, in our complex here, we have two individuals that connecting themselves to the goddess Nuches, being priests of this goddess. This is definitely a revolution in what we know about this goddess. We're hoping for more information about her.
But first, another mystery demands Ramadan's attention. "100 feet beneath the desert Egyptologist Dr. Ramadan Hussein and his team are opening a newly discovered burial chamber. For Ramadan, its contents are a golden opportunity to learn more about the residents of the tombs in this complex.
We can just have a peek at a really big room with a number of wooden coffins. So we have multiple burials in there. And I could see already a wooden box with a calcite canopic jar that I'm seeing right there.
Canopic jars like this were used to store the organs of the dead as a way of guaranteeing eternal life. And on one of them, Ramadan, an expert in hieroglyphics, spots a name.
Now we had a photograph of the canopic jars, and I could see the name we have here is Didi Bastet. So it's good to find a mummy, it's good to find a coffin, it's good to find a canopic jar. But it's much better to be able to put a name on this.
The name Didi Bastet is also significant for another reason. Across the hallway, on the sarcophagus of a priest called Chanimit, is a painted inscription. It describes not only his titles, but also the name of his mother, one Didi Bastet.
It makes you happy as a family reunion here. You get the son and the mother in the same place. And you don't find this very often in archaeology.
Armed with this crucial new information, the team gets ready to enter Didi Bastet's chamber for the first time.
We're setting up some light in here because the room is quite dark. عمار ما تخليهاش مايلة خليها مستقيمة لا مستقيمة في الكورنر.
2,500 years of heat and humidity have taken their toll, and the room's contents are extremely fragile. So the first job is to create a carbon copy.
You have seen all the wood inside the chamber. As soon as someone touches it, it will just fall apart and it will fall into dust. So the only possibility to preserve it is to have a 3D, digital 3D model.
The team is using a digital imaging technique called photogrammetry. It involves stitching together hundreds of overlapping photographs to create a 3D model.
It's always exciting. It's always exciting to get inside a burial chamber and be the first to explore it. Archaeology is a field of being a detective on the site. You're collecting information, you're asking questions until you reach a conclusion. And this is what we do. They might look to somebody like old dusty bones, but for us, they're not. They're humans.
To learn more about Didi Bastet, Ramadan must inspect her hidden tomb. The team has just finished creating a 3D digital copy of it. And Ramadan is anxious to see the results. And there's an even bigger surprise. The model reveals something very odd about Didi Bastet's grave goods.
This one right here. This is something unique.
Specifically, the canopic jars containing her internal organs. While it was the ancient Egyptian custom to be buried with 4 canopic jars, the model appears to show 2 extra jars placed either side of Didi Bastet's mummy.
To my knowledge, unprecedented. I haven't seen something like that. I haven't heard something like that. I've been in contact with colleagues to ask them, have they seen a set of 6 Kennebec jars? So far, the answer I'm getting, this is unheard of. This is something new.
If Ramadan's interpretation of the model is correct, then it's a potentially groundbreaking discovery.
بس كده واحدة بس. Is it okay?
The only way for him to be sure is to inspect the jars for himself.
Normally, it's just one set of 4. But we have those 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And all of a sudden, I have one here on the western side of this coffin, and on the eastern side, there's another one. That's a first for me. That's something new. That is something new. This complex is unlike any other burial chambers that we have seen.
Inside the hidden burial chamber, it's now safe for Ramadan and his team to start removing some of Didi Bastet's many grave goods.
I have never seen something like this. This is beautiful.
It's treasures. You have to be careful.
Among the items being packed up and hoisted to the surface are her canopic jars. Since it was the norm to be buried with 4 jars, each containing a different organ, Ramadan is intrigued to know why Didi Bastet was buried with 6.
Everything must be slowly.
So the 2 extra jars are being taken to Cairo's Egyptian Museum. Using the museum's CT scanner, Ramadan is hoping to reveal the jar's contents.
The real power of this machine is that it gives us an idea about what is actually inside the object. Do we expect to find a mummy organ? Can we see a liver? It's an adventure.
The first jar, depicting the jackal-headed god Duamutef, is placed inside the scanner.
This is very interesting. This is such a unique piece.
It's followed by the falcon-headed jar.
We did the CT scans of the 2 small canopic jars. And the first one is the jackal. What we can see here is the inside, it is almost totally filled with this grayish material. Now we are adjusting the view, and here the material is totally occupying the inside of the jar. And this is really a peculiar thing that I would say that this is tissue.
So just to double check with you that I understand you correctly, the gray area, which is pretty much the majority of the content, is human tissue. Is that true?
I find a lump of tissue.
And it's the same story with the falcon-headed jar, which also appears to contain human tissue. But what type?
We should be thinking about other organs that we traditionally don't see in burials, in the canopic jars. Something like the brain, something like the kidneys. It's possibility, why not? But I'm very happy to know that there's soft tissue inside the 2 canopic jars.
The discovery that the 2 small jars could contain extra organs is a fascinating new piece of information.
We could have all the organs of Didi Bastet being taken out, embalmed, and put inside 6 canopic jars. There might be the brain of Didi Bastet and the kidneys, the 2 organs that would never been embalmed in ancient Egypt. We never seen this happening for any person, but that could be the situation with Didi Busted.
To move it on the...
So why was this done?
We're guessing that Didi Busted would have bought an extra package where her brain and kidney been embalmed and placed in 2 extra calorific jars.
It really is an indication of the status of women in ancient Egypt. Ancient Egyptian women commanded a great deal of power, prestige, wealth, and independence. So we really get a sense of the woman who had this tomb.
If women had power in Egypt, so did priests. And on one priest's coffin, Ramadan recently unearthed an artifact that's among the most valuable found in ancient Egypt in the last 100 years.
We have discovered something that will definitely, the entire world will be talking about.
Ramadan has come to Cairo's famous Egyptian Museum to be reunited with an object that offers a fascinating insight into the status of priests. An exquisite gilded silver burial mask belonging to a priest from the complex.
Very rare object. You don't find something like this every day.
Unlike gold, which could be found throughout Egypt, most silver at the time of the pharaohs had to be imported, making it one of the most precious substances around.
Silver was, economically speaking, like a currency, almost double the value of gold. Every commodity would be valued against silver. But also, the Egyptians always believed that the bones of the gods were made of silver. Their flesh and skin were made of gold. This is the purpose of having this silver plate covered with a gold foil, is one step toward transformation of the dead into a god, into a divine.
That such a valuable item belonged to a priest is a measure of just how wealthy they could be, with a status second only to that of Egyptian royalty. To learn more about the composition of the mask, head conservator Mu'amin Uthman has been analyzing its metal content by bombarding it with X-rays and measuring the unique chemical fingerprint given off in return.
I'm really curious to know the purity of the silver and also the purity of the gilded layer.
The gilded layer in this part here, we found the concentration of the gold, it's 60%.
Music to my ears. I'm also interested to know the purity of the silver plate.
It's so strange because we found the concentration of silver from the pack. 99%.
99? What?
99.07.
Oh my God.
It's almost pure silver.
Purer even than sterling silver, which has a concentration of just 93%.
It's just shocking to me how pure this silver plate is. Have you seen something like this?
No, till now I haven't seen something like this yet, with this high concentration of silver.
The purity of the silver and the purity of the gold, it's a certain kind of wealth that we haven't seen before. We see it only with royals, not with commoners.
While these results are further confirmation that priests could be extremely wealthy, they're also evidence of something else. A successful funeral business offering its clients the very best goods and services that money could buy. Wealthy priest Ayawet was furnished with the largest sarcophagus in the entire complex. Inside his burial chamber, the team is carefully removing his crumbling mummy. It's painstaking work. And while the team has a rest, Ramadan visits Yiput's sarcophagus, which is now opened just enough for a tantalizing look inside.
It's beautiful. What we have here is a mummy similar to Chanamit's mummy. Similar mummification technique for the two of them. It's very interesting. We see a lot of beads at the feet of this mummy. Looks like they were put around the mummy, not really threaded. And this is something that I haven't seen before. So we need to look closely to the face and the body of Yiput.
Al-Habib.
Finally, for the first time in 2,600 years, Yiput's mummy is fully revealed.
That very beautifully wrapped mummy coated with this black bitumen. You could see the old bandage here, the mummy wrappings right here.
Looking closer, Ramadan tries to make sense of the shape of the body beneath the mummy wrappings. And he spies something totally unexpected.
There is something quite mind-blowing. Looking at the sarcophagus of Yiput and the text and his name that is written right here and the title being a priest of Nuches, all speaks to me as a man. But now looking at the mummy, I'm seeing something different. You could see a silhouette of that left arm over the chest, and then another protrusion here, possibly the right shoulder, going all the way down along the body. So what we have here is the left arm crossed over the chest, while the right arm extended along the body and possibly reaching the pelvic area. This is a position that is restricted to women of high status.
In other words, what the arm position suggests is that instead of being a priest of Nut Shayez, Yiput may, in fact, have been a priestess.
All these months I'm talking about Yiput as a man, and all of a sudden I have a mummy with a hand and arm position that is for a woman. I might be wrong, but I would be very surprised if there is no more surprises in this complex. Now we need to have this question answered and the identification of the sex of this mummy confirmed by X-ray.
"100 feet beneath the desert, inside a makeshift lab, radiologist Sahar Salim is getting ready to X-ray the 2,500-year-old mummy of Yiput, the priest.
Clear, please.
The scans will confirm whether Yiput's skeleton is male or female.
Okay. I'll do my best for you. I feel responsible for making everybody happy.
And the first thing to check is the arm position.
When we opened the sarcophagus of Yiput, Dr. Ramadan was suspicious about the position of the arm. Now we are going to X-ray this mummy and figure out the real position of the arm.
Okay, ready? Shoot.
The first X-rays confirm the team's initial suspicions.
Okay, good. Yiput arm position, the crossing of the left arm over the chest, it looks like the burial of a woman. It is very clear.
Further scans reveal other specific clues.
Shoot. The skull is not really in a good condition, but this bone beneath the ear, it is smooth, and the roundness of the skull, I have this feeling that this could be a woman. This pelvis. The pelvis also is not that intact, but there is a big round cavity just towards the female. Also, the blades of the iliac region, they are more flat. This is also with a woman.
The X-ray is telling me that Yaput is a woman, not a man. My journey in understanding Yaput is like a roller coaster of understanding. You go up one point and then all of a sudden you drop down. This is what makes archaeology so interesting.
There is no evidence to suggest that Chanamit was a woman. But now, Ramadan is keen to investigate the gender of another priest from the complex. The priest with the gilded silver mask.
You were thinking it's male?
Yeah, but now we might have a very big surprise in terms of the sex of this mummy.
Now that the painted wooden coffin has been removed, project consultant Salima is able to identify a crucial telltale feature.
I mean, certainly I can see from the brow, it's quite sharp. That's certainly a female trait, sort of quite extraordinary.
Just as revealing is the mummy's crossed arm position.
When you have one arm crossed over your breast and one along your side, that poses something that is only seen with female mummies. And so the fact that this body has the same pose would really argue, in addition to all of the physical characteristics on the skeleton, that this is a woman.
This is a surprise.
The potential discovery of a second priestess is a fascinating development.
Having priestesses buried here is significant because it tells us what ancient Egyptian women were like and what their social status was. They had the same social economic class, they had the same level of wealth, the same level of prestige and privilege. And really, it emphasizes the point that in ancient Egypt, more than any other ancient culture, women had many more rights and were far more equal to men than elsewhere.
Also significant is the goddess, worshipped by 3 people buried here, including the priestess in the silver mask.
Shaft K24 has the largest number of mentions of the goddess Nuches in one place in the entire country of Egypt. I think we discovered a new cult in ancient Egypt, the cult of a goddess we didn't know much about, with priests and priestesses who served her.
And to Ramadan, a new cult suggests something more.
Did Nuches have her own shrine in the immediate vicinity of Shaft K24?
It's questions like this that are the reason why the team is still digging.
Our mission here, what we're doing is looking for information and rewriting the story of every individual we discover here. And we're still gonna gather more of it. This is for us a lifelong research project.